everybody, and welcome back to episode 33 of the Resurrected Winner Issue podcast. As ever, my name is David, and I'm sitting 17 watchtowers across from Mr. Alex Aldridge. Alex, since we're sitting across from watchtowers with each other, and since we're about to talk Firewatch, I think we're going to have walkie-talkie sex at some point during the course of the evening.
Okay.
There's just no other way for it. Yeah. How are you doing today, Alex?
I've left my Alzheimer's riddled wife for you. Say sexy things. Over.
What do you look like? Do you have a moustache?
My wife's lucidity is over. Oh.
And that,
sorry, what did you say? How am I? Oh, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. I don't have Alzheimer's.
Not yet.
No, it's probably coming my way, actually. I think it runs in the family to an extent.
It runs in the female side of my family.
Yeah,
so I'm
same.
fine. The
Same.
problem with the male side of my family is we'll be dead before we get to an age that we're going to get.
I maintain that our brains are going to be awesome because of all the video games we play.
Yeah.
We're constantly puzzle solving and using our reactions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we must be streets ahead of our parental equivalents by the time they were our age.
Oh yeah, they were just like hitting stuff in coal mines or whatever it was. We're fucking pew-pewing.
Pew-pewing.
They never did a 360 no scope in their life. They don't even know what that fucking means.
Exactly. They were not
dickheads. Cool. Yeah, exactly.
Not like us anyway. So,
there you go.
What are we
Life's
doing here, Alex?
solved.
We're here to talk video games, of course. But
we are here to get away from life's ills.
By confronting ourselves with the reality of life's ills, I suppose, when it comes to this game.
Yeah, good point. And to put ourselves at risk of dying in a fire.
Yeah.
That's what I would do if I was at a loose end.
Other than Postman, I think if you could create a job... Oh, see, you were a postman for about 48 hours,
for a week, less than a week.
Yeah. So in my head...
I don't recommend it.
If you were to have a job where you were like, right, I don't need to worry about paying bills, I just want a job, postman is the one. Because you get, like, in my head, I get to walk, and get to be physically active, I get to be outside, and I'm just putting earphones in and listening to podcasts and audiobooks all day. That seems ideal to me.
Yeah. The biggest issue I had, well, with the actual job itself was the holding of things and the usage of elastic bands. Because I just couldn't do it. It's actually harder than it looks.
Elastic bands
to have a bundle of stuff and like take one thing out of an elastic band like pile of letters that's under your arm, and then like maintain that elastic band and not have it ping off down the street and hit Mrs. Miggins while she's out getting the milk. Yeah, I was dropping them all over the place. It's really hard to like put a bundle together. And then obviously, I was walking around all these nice houses and thought, never going to live in one of these if I'm a postman. So I quit.
Yeah, fair.
And they're all miserable bastards. On my first day there, they brought in the fucking union rep to tell me how all the management are assholes and they're all against you. I don't agree with anything they say.
That sounds like a union rep.
I told you, didn't I? They were going on about the banter. The guy was like, "Oh, you'll love the banter here, mate. It's so good." And then a guy just walks past him and he's like, "All right, dickhead." He goes, "Yeah, fuck off." See, mate, it's great, isn't it? Because the postmen are a miserable bunch of twats. Well, really are.
Because I used to think, being a farmer would be up there, but I was
going to say farmer. It's hard work, though.
It's hard work. It's like my uncle's a farmer. He doesn't get many holidays.
Is he?
Yeah, and you're out. Like, I am not good with the cold. At least if I'm sort of, I don't know. Like if I am a postman, I can put a jacket on. In my head, like farmers, they're always out, sun, right, wind, rain or shine, getting frozen to death, skin like leather.
I do like the postman's adherence to a uniform that has to involve shorts. I'm totally down with that. Yeah, I have tried to think about that myself, actually. And I was going to say farmer, because it does feel like that would be rewarding and like chilled, but it wouldn't be. You'd want to be something like, I don't know, not a dog walker, because you've got to deal with other people's dogs.
And you might lose a dog, and then there's a whole thing. So
Yeah.
another one, and I guess they don't exist as jobs anymore, but because you can tell I've thought about this for a long time. My granddad used to be a lighthouse keeper. Now I feel like that also would be up there in terms of jobs that
Your family's got some wicked jobs.
that's a good one, isn't it? My mum grew up in lighthouses, which is an absolutely great way to spend.
Have you ever seen them? The ones that she's grew up in?
I actually went up to Thurso. Like Annie and I like to go away and like pick a random place in Scotland pre-COVID and just go and stay in like a tiny house or something interesting. So we went up to Thurso, and my mum had stayed in a lighthouse in Thurso, or on the way there. So I stopped off on the way.
Wow.
So yeah, that's another one that's up there.
Yeah, people seem to act as if you go mental, but they're obviously not 360 no scoping, and you're going to get good Wi-Fi signal right up in the fucking top of the lighthouse.
Get right up the top, get the podcast on, play some video games.
Just project Apex Legends right out onto the sea to help people get to shore while you're
basically, I've just been always thinking about these so that I can try and create an environment in which my day job's extremely chilled. I get paid enough to live so that I can just mess about and do this.
Yeah,
that's all I want to do. Yeah. But where I'm going with this is, I think Firewatch, other than breathing in the smoke and maybe getting burnt by a fire, being a Firewatch person might be another one that's up there, because I'm not into people particularly, so like this is ideal. You get to be in the forest, you get to poop in a hole, I don't know, and then you get to get nice views.
Yeah, I mean the only thing is that the cabins look a bit cold, and although if there's fires around then they'll be lovely, but if you don't have a mental bloke like what's the word, kind of harassing you in the shadows or from the shadows and breaking up all your windows, then you're all right. Sounds like a lovely old job.
Yeah, I think so. Which is, and why we're talking about Firewatch towers, because I actually think if you've read the podcast,
and it's up there,
we've been playing Campo Santo's Firewatch.
What year? 2015, 16?
2016, 9th of February it was released.
Oh, it's around about now.
Round about now. Oh, well, to be fair, this is like a Winner Is You anniversary, because we've just missed it or got it totally wrong, like a year off.
And it's not a 5 or a 10.
Yeah.
It's the 6th year anniversary.
What's your general feelings of Firewatch, Alex? Do you like it? Did you not like it? Did you like it more than you thought you would? Less? Was it what you expected?
Right, so where to even start?
Yeah,
I definitely liked it. I would have liked it more had I played the PC version, because the Xbox Series X version,
I don't remember it running like that on
horrific
Xbox OG.
It's actually quite shameful.
I think I've played it on both. I think I got I've played it on both consoles, the PS4 and the Xbox, because I liked it so much. I bought it again to play and try and get the achievements. Yeah.
Yeah, it's now on Game Pass for both PC and Xbox Series. But the Series X version is not up, and it's just come as well. It came to Game Pass this year, 2022, and it has not been optimized in any way whatsoever. It should be the PC version ported, but it is not. It's the Xbox One version in all its horrible pop-in 30 frames per second, no anti-aliasing, disgusting.
Yeah, when you were moaning about it, because I hadn't started it when you were complaining about it, I was like, oh, this is just I remember playing this, it was fine, this is just Alex being Alex, it's going to be absolutely okay. And I played it and I was like, and as soon as I started moving, I was like, and
yeah,
I said this to you at the time, I am not someone that is like, maybe I am now, I don't know, but I would have not, if you had said to me, I am not someone that can eyeball frame rates and tell you if a game's running smoothly or not. Usually it's fine for me and I'm quite happy, but this one I was like, ooh,
yeah,
it was not pretty.
And the like I said, the pop-up, you'd get like little shrubs just yards in front of you, just popping in constantly. It was so off-putting. And the PC version is fine. It runs really nicely. 60. I can play it 60 FPS, 4K.
Yeah.
My PC is not as good as my Series X, so I really don't understand why it's that bad. It doesn't even have the frame boost, which is just unforgivable.
Yeah.
And it spoils what I assume, or at least I've noticed when trying the PC version now. It's a really lovely art style from a very talented artist.
Well, I had kind of had this in my head to ask you. What was your? It was so for you. For those that don't know, this game was sort of designed. Is that right? Like, certainly the environmental design was made by a guy called Ollie Moss, who's a British sort of graphic designer. Is that fair?
Yeah, I knew him from making quite a lot of really interesting film posters.
That's kind of where he makes his money, isn't it? Making film posters.
Yeah.
He fell onto my radar because he did the box art for Resistance 3, Resistance Fall 3. But he did.
I'm thinking about it. That does seem like it's his style.
He did the European version because, as we've sort of touched on over the decades we've been podcasting, is that Americans almost exclusively get worse box art than we do.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah, but yeah,
Resident Evil 4 being the worst offender of that.
If you're interested in some Ollie Moss, Google the Resistance 3 box art, the European version. It's like a skull with
yes.
Is it New York City or something? Within the skull. It's quite good.
Yeah.
I'm sure he did something to do with Star Wars. He's done Star Wars posters and things.
Yeah, he did like a lot of posters for probably American film festivals and stuff that certain independent cinema chains would be putting on a film festival of a certain director or whatever, and he would make these amazing film posters for it. I've nearly bought his work quite a lot.
I wish I should actually,
because it ain't cheap and it's always limited in terms of how long it's available.
I've got space in this room for posters. I've had my eye on one of those big posters you get, but there's a Doom one on Amazon that I really want after we played Doom 64.
Is it the image?
It's the one, and they've got obviously it's not real, but they've it's like a reprint of a poster that all the developers have signed. It's really cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that is cool.
I really want that.
But I mean, yeah, it's a shame that to play it in 2022 is such a miserable experience from a technical standpoint when it really doesn't need to be. So if you have the choice out there and your PC's of any reliable spec, do not play it on Series X because it's terrible.
And you're right, because it is a shame, because it is a genuinely good game. I think it's got
a lovely color palette to it.
I think some of you're right in because the lovely color palette in the design of the game, it is gorgeous, and the way it ran, unfortunately for us this time round, undermined that somewhat, which is a real shame, because it sort of gets in the way of itself. The other thing is, I actually think I don't think it's quite as impactful now because the games industry has moved on, especially this genre has moved on in the last 6 years. But at the time, this was, to me, in my opinion, was the best of the walking simulators. And
I haven't played a lot, but it is the best one I've played.
Gone Home was sort of the breakout, wasn't it? I wonder how that's aged. I bet it's not aged great. I think it'd be quite dull nowadays.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of reading and going through people's drawers, reading diaries and things like that.
I think, and there's out of them two, there's definitely a theme of I would say, slightly anticlimactic ending. I wasn't bowled over by Gone Home's end.
No, the Gone Home end.
I can really barely remember it because it's clearly not that memorable.
You discover that your sisters had your family's basically fallen apart. Your mum and dad, one or both, are having an affair.
Yeah, that's right.
Your sister's coming to terms with being a lesbian and really struggling with it, and then she runs off with her girlfriend, I think, and you're like, oh no, she's gone.
Yeah, and it just sort of got big over the fact that it was, people expected it to be some sort of a horror game, and it never was. Yeah,
it was just something new, wasn't it? Whereas I think this came along and sort of moved the genre on again. I think it
probably was agreed with by the industry, or at least by the industry award bodies, but I think the performances in this game are still stellar. I'm a big fan of Rich Sommer from his portrayal of Harry Crane in Mad Men. Yeah, he's one of my favourite Mad Men characters. But I think definitely the woman, and I can't even remember the names because it's been so long since we actually played Firewatch. What's her name?
Delilah.
Yes, of course. She won an award, I swear. At the Game Awards, I'm almost certain she got
I don't know if
a voice actress award.
I don't know if so her name's Sissy Jones in real life, and she played Katja in The Walking Dead season 1.
She's done another really big role as well that I saw, and I can't remember what it was. But
have a quick look.
I think I could be getting my games mixed up now. She wasn't Elizabeth in BioShock Infinite, was she? Is that somebody else?
Oh, that maybe. She's in Darksiders 3, The Walking Dead, Firewatch, Life is Strange. Who's she in Life is Strange? Not sure who she is in Life is Strange. She's also in Lego DC, Grand Theft Auto 5. But yeah, so she actually the sort of lead guys behind this.
The girl from BioShock Infinite was the wife Sarah from Gone Home. Days Gone.
Right. Oh, was she? Okay.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
Right. I knew she'd come up somewhere. Anyway.
Yeah. So where was I going with that? Oh yeah. So yeah, Sissy Jones. She met the guy Jake Rodkin and Sean Vanneman because they were sort of the lead designers, lead story guys on The Walking Dead season 1. And I think their storytelling now sort of is quite apparent in this because they left.
They worked on that, absolutely.
Yeah, they left Telltale to. It's Telltale that did that, didn't it? To start up Campo Santo, and then they released Firewatch a few years later.
I see.
I said,
they certainly honed their craft there.
Yeah. Like I said before, Ollie Moss, who's the artist. Campo Santo, they're also at the moment making In the Valley of Gods, which I thought looked absolutely amazing when it was. I mean, this has been on the go for so long that it was announced at E3. But
remind me what that is.
It's sort of it's another walking simulator game, but it's set in sort of an Amazonian forest, and you're this guy and woman, and you're exploring this sort of Mayan temple. And it seems to be the gameplay mechanic is built around taking pictures and things like that. Problem being is that they were then subsequently bought by Valve, and as we know, any game company that gets bought by Valve sort of sinks into the Valve swamp and is never seen again.
Bought by anybody else, really.
Chances are we will never see this game because the way I think we've spoken about this before in previous, and I don't know if it's previous podcasts, and I don't know if it's still like this, but sort of the flat structure of Valve would be basically if you and I worked for Valve, we would come in and say we'd be having a coffee in the morning, we'd be chatting, and then we'd come up with an idea for a game. Our desks are on wheels, so we'd just sort of wheel our desks over together and then just start trying to make this game. And then if we thought, it's not going anywhere, we'd go and have a coffee with someone else and then wheel our desks somewhere else and just sort of... And that's why we never get games anymore from Valve.
Too much wheeling about.
There's too much wheeling about, drinking coffee.
Fools. Hang on, what were we talking about before that?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. If they do get dissolved, that is a real shame because I was listening, and I'm pretty sure you've already listened to this yourself, but I've been listening to the second Jason Schreier book. What's it called? Press Reset? No.
Press Reset and Blood, Sweat and Pixels, there is 2, is it not?
Done the first one, yeah. I've done Blood, Sweat and Pixels, so...
I have listened to it, I've just forgotten what it's called.
Yeah. And like the first chapter is all about Warren Spector and how he built up his own studio because he was fed up of being told what to do. And then he got bought by Disney to make Epic Mickey. Then he basically just fell out with everybody, and they were trying to make him do stuff he didn't want to do. And then eventually they folded the company. And it just seems like, how can you not have the foresight to think you're probably going to regret this?
Yeah,
he went against everything that he stood for in terms of, I'm going to make my own company. And then he got bought up by like one of the biggest companies in the world. And it just seems like this rarely ever goes well, does it? It just seems like it always ends up with they're going to shut you down, having forced you to make crap that you didn't really care about before that, like sports games or whatever.
It's one of those, isn't it? So like, I guess like a Double Fine would be an idea, like because they just got bought by Microsoft, BioWare when they got bought by EA. If you're the owners of those companies and someone comes along and goes, here's enough money that if you don't want to work, you'll never need to work again. We'll buy your company, but you have to stay on for X number of years. I would be staying on for X number of years. I'd probably be coasting, and then when it would get to the end of the time that I had to be there, I'd leave and just. But then what I would do is I'd probably just start another one, give it another name, and start again.
I think that's what he's done.
Because that's what they're buying. They're buying your expertise. That's what the like Sony have bought Bungie for. You buy the expertise as well.
That was out of desperation as well, I think.
Yeah.
There was very little else they could do. It's an odd one. You almost have to kind of check your creativity and your independence at the door, don't you? Just for the golden handshake at the end, and then get back to being as creative as you wanted to be before you got bought out. It's just really weird.
Yeah, it's really, really odd, isn't it? But I feel like John. I guess we've covered him before.
I was thinking of him.
He's gone and made a lot of different games, and he's messed around like creating companies and stuff like that.
Well, didn't he create Ion Storm? Was that him?
Ion Storm? Yeah, that's him. Yeah,
because that's one of the companies that Warren Spector worked for.
Oh, is it?
He left. Yeah.
His most recent game that I can think of, because he in that book
he did a lot of mobile, didn't he?
He did mobile, and he like does games with his kids quite a lot. But he released that sort of XCOM Italian mob game that's on PC.
Yes, he did. Yeah,
I've forgotten what that's called.
I played that for about an hour. Empire of Sin.
That's it. I've had it downloaded since I bought a PC because it seems like my thing, but it just seems. Is it brutally hard? I'm not in the mood. I'm not.
Really... I haven't found it difficult so far, but I've only played a very small amount. I can't remember what was supposed to have been bad about it, but it's not too. It was all right from what I saw.
Mm-hmm. When I got my PC, the first two games to get there was that and Gears Tactics, and I really, really liked Gears Tactics.
We still need to play Disco
Elysium. Yeah,
that's the one.
I've got that downloaded as well, just sitting waiting for the day.
Yep. That may never come.
I'm trying to think, like, what else have we got? So in August 2020, they also announced that they were going to try and turn the movie Firewatch into a film. How do you think that would have? I think that would have probably went okay, I guess, if it was done as a sort of art house movie.
Yeah, because you're going to have to. Do you think that they would ever show Delilah in a film scenario?
I don't think.
Or would you do it? I think it spoils it if you do.
I think it does. I wouldn't want to, but I was going to say I don't think you can, but Hollywood probably might. Yeah,
there's not a lot of subtlety.
No,
depending on who's making it.
No, if
it's an art house film, then you'd hope that they would go. Well, you shouldn't see his wife and you shouldn't see Delilah. You should just kind of see him, and maybe the guy for a brief period, I guess.
Yeah.
Because we want to be left with the fact that potentially Delilah is like a big fat disgusting slob whose skin's inside out or something.
Yeah, and he
nearly had walkie-talkie sex while still married to a woman who can't remember anything with like this, inside out woman or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, but
I wasn't happy with that scene. We'll get to that, but I was not happy with that.
What scene, sorry?
Where he just starts kind of like, you get the choice to basically flirt, and at one point you get the chance to say something like really dismissive about his wife, just kind of like, I don't give a shit about her anymore. Yeah, she can say, oh, you've got, isn't your wife sick? You shouldn't be talking like this or something, and he can just be like, fuck her, I don't care anymore, sort of thing.
Wow.
You can totally like bin her off in a conversation with her at one point, but I obviously didn't do that.
No, I think
didn't do that to my nan, and I'm not doing it to whatever the woman's name is. What's his wife's name?
Sarah? Lucy? Forgotten.
I'm pretty sure as well. I went back and played because when I was trying it out on my PC, I went back and played the beginning again, and those choices don't mean anything.
Oh no, absolutely nothing at all.
No,
but it's
if you say a different chat up line, she doesn't get Alzheimer's. That's the trick.
I think this is why I think the video game industry has moved on somewhat. I remember like my big takeaway from this is when I first played this game 6 years ago was that I was really, really enraptured by the fact that the main character, the guy that you were controlling, I don't want to say he's not a nice guy, but he's made a lot of mistakes. He's been quite selfish.
Yeah, he definitely has that.
And he's been presented with, he's been forced or sort of found himself in a situation that he just was wholly unequipped to deal with. And I found it fascinating, sort of in that, like, when you play video games, even to say most games like this, but it's less so now, that like he just wasn't the perfect sort of shining knight here to save the day. He was just sort of a really fallible guy who had made a mistake and was actually just running away from his problems. And that's what I enjoyed about the story, is the sort of nuance in that regard. And it wasn't just his wife has gotten ill and he's he's stuck by her the whole way, and she's died, and he's gone off to find himself again, which would have been the easy way to do this game. But actually what they did was he fell in love. It got tough. He couldn't cope with the situation he was in, so instead of acknowledging that he couldn't cope with it, he just ran away and tried to ignore it for a while.
Well, she has gone back to Australia at this point.
She got taken back to Australia by her family, yeah.
But I completely agree with that. It was really good to see somebody who's as imperfect as everybody.
Exactly.
He felt real throughout.
That's what I was getting at.
You don't often get that, depending on what obviously a video game is supposed to be about. But for most video games we play, they are not about being somebody who makes mistakes and lives with regret and doubt.
Exactly. You're the guy that goes in
escapism.
and saves the day and makes the big decisions that are always right in the face of everybody saying that you're wrong. Whereas this, he made mistakes. I keep defaulting to say he was a bit of a dick. I don't want to say that.
He was surly at times, but he's coming in there from a bad place. So
he was just someone that just, like, I'm repeating myself now, but just found himself in a situation he couldn't cope with, and at the same time, like, I found myself at the same time sort of acknowledging that what he did wasn't great and he has not handled the situation well, but at the same time sort of feeling sympathy for him at times. I don't know how you felt about him.
I mean, it's a totally different scenario, but I remember when I was like a teenager, my girlfriend at the time went to university like miles and miles and miles away from me, and there were times when I would strike up friendship with other women and get really close to them and feel really bad about it, but I felt so detached from the person I was supposed to be with that I don't know, that feeling of being alone or missing somebody or whatever, if you can't do anything about it and they're so far away and that's what it is, then we're not, like I say, we're all infallible and we'll all just end up craving something that we probably shouldn't at some point to get us out of whatever funk we're in. So I could kind of relate to the fact that this mystery woman is comforting him in this time when really he should be pushing that away or whatever. But I think a lot of people have probably been in a scenario where something like that has come along and it's hard to try and compartmentalize the good and bad and why you should talk to them and how you should talk to them and whether the relationship is a danger to you or a comfort or whatever. And that aspect of this I thought was played out quite well as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, Delilah obviously had seemingly no intention of respecting his marriage or his relationship with his wife until right near the end, where she, just spoilers for the rest of this podcast, where she just fucks off and leaves him and then goes, nah, you should go back to your wife, mate.
But in a way, that is her character. Like when you read the bios of her throughout the game, she has a boyfriend. She cheats on him all the time. She's an alcoholic. She is the female version of Henry in that she sort of runs away from her problems rather than facing them. And Henry just was another one of those things that rather than sort of meet him, it was easier just to run off.
Yeah.
And I think I find that interesting because, like, again, I think you like this game just sort of really resonated with me, both on the fact that he was a fallible character and I found him interesting rather than just perfect, but also we spoke about it at the start of the podcast. Like I've had Alzheimer's in my family, so if you like, when I was probably between the ages of like 18 and 25, my gran had Alzheimer's and I dealt with it so badly. Rather than like, it's one of my things is that I'll always be really proud of my like sister for is that when my gran got unwell, she kept going and visiting. I found it impossible to go and see her. And then
I think I understand where you're coming from.
And like, it's emotional immaturity that I would hope I've grown out of now. But at the time, I would make excuses for it, saying, "Oh, there's no point in me going and seeing her. She doesn't know who I am." But actually, it's because I was too scared to go and see her. And then when I started playing this game, and you find out that she's ill like that, and he has dealt with it in a very similar way to how I dealt with it. I'm just like, well, yeah, I get it. I feel sorry for him. You've done the wrong thing. But at the same time, like when I think about myself, it's like, do you feel bad about it? I was a child. I don't feel bad about it. Do I wish I had been better? Yes, of course I do. So I just find that, I guess, it's like the personal sort of slant on that. The game, I found this game really, really spoke to me in a way that maybe it doesn't to others. I'm not sure if that's fair.
I don't. To this day, I won't ever really understand, or I won't ever be able to put my finger on the best way to deal with something like that. It's a pretty thankless task, that realistically doesn't necessarily benefit that person. Obviously that person needs to be looked after and they need to have company and whatever, but so often, and I know it's a lot of the time, it's the way it's portrayed, but you can end up making that person feel worse if you're like, I mean, it's not, no pun intended, obviously, you're like a reminder to them of that there's something wrong. And if it's really hard not to point that sort of shit out. If they say something mad, you see a lot of time people just try and sort of laugh it off and say, "What are you talking about, Nan? I'm not." My Nan once called me Stuart, which is my uncle, it was bald before I was properly bald. I was quite insulted by that. But you kind of laugh it off and you're like, "I'm not Stuart, it's Alex, Nan. What are you talking about?" But after a while, you kind of like, that person's going to suffer if they keep having to hear you telling them that everything that they're saying is wrong, and like, "What are you talking about? This is not right. You're remembering it wrong. You've lost your whatever." You obviously don't have to be harsh to them, but like I say, to think what they actually get out of it, it's almost like having a stranger in their life is the better way to go about it, because you're just a reminder of, I can't really relate to these people anymore. I don't really recognize these people, but they keep telling me that I'm this and I'm forgetting this, and that just makes you feel bad from many angles. Like, you have to keep repeating this to them. They have to keep feeling this way, like sorry for what they're saying and forgetting. And yeah, it's really, I don't really know. I can't really remember how I dealt with it in terms of, I don't think I tried to avoid her. I just don't think I saw her very much. I must have been at uni at the time. I think I was at uni at the time. So I was in Scotland, like 450 miles away, so there's not really much I could do. But I remember it killed my mum, and she has done amazing things for both her parents when they were really like unsalvageable by the end of their life. They were both absolute shells of who they were in their prime, and to see the strength of that, the selflessness of that, is something that perhaps a generational thing, perhaps a gender thing. I feel like it seems, in both our scenarios, women have been the more able to put aside any potential pain for themselves to just be completely selfless and look after this person. Whereas for us, maybe again, we were younger, so it was harder for us to actually figure that out and just go off of that one and only reason for being. Because it sucks. I remember my mum's aunt had a stroke and she had to be put in an old folks home. We went to visit her and I said to my dad, like, "You need to get me the fuck out of here. I don't like this. I don't like seeing all these people being like this. That I feel horrible for everybody in here. This place is horrible. I don't want to be here. I don't want to think about her in here, and I wish I hadn't seen it." And that sounds horrible, but it's through the compassion for that person. Yeah. I'm not sure what Henry did out of compassion for his wife by being a fire watchman while she's in Australia.
But this is what I'm getting at, and is that he was presented with an issue, couldn't deal with it. She got put in a home, and I'm not sure if I picked this up right, but she didn't just get put in a home in Australia. She started off in a home in the States. Henry didn't deal with it properly, so her family came and took her back.
Yeah, I think that's about right. It must be so horrible at that age as well. Like, we're talking about our grandparents here.
Yeah.
Which is that's when you should get it if you're going to get it, which sounds horrible.
Like in his 40s by the looks of him.
Yeah, she was in her early 40s, I think he says at the beginning, which is just, that would be absolutely crushing.
You've not even had a proper life together.
Yeah, exactly. And you know that everything you've built is definitely crumbling down, and it's going to end sooner than you wanted it to, and it's ending now. And for you, it's probably already ended because that person doesn't exist. There's just a body in your presence that doesn't serve the purpose that it ever has before. And what do you do? How do you deal with that? That's gonna crush anyone.
Absolutely, yeah. and then it starts with, it sort of begins with this and then moves on to him mentioning periodically his wife's sister and how she had told him to try and write a diary or do some writing and just try and, because she was obviously one person,
typewriter, wasn't he?
Yeah, she was obviously the one person in his wife's family that sort of saw it for what it was, and it wasn't pure selfishness, it was just an inability to deal with the situation he found himself in, which is a running theme throughout the game as well, in that he does periodically do typing and writing, and a lot of the times that you sort of take control over Henry during the day, he's been writing or trying to write. And the one of these bits that actually, I'm jumping about a bit here, but one of the things that actually sort of resonated me with it is, because this is the third time I've played this game that never resonated with me the first two times, is when when Henry realizes, or he gets hit over the head by the guy.
Yeah.
He gets knocked out and he wakes up, and then they realise that their conversations are being listened to. Mm-hmm. And he has he sort of ran away from his problems. He's not dealt with the emotional side of it. He's then found himself in the woods on his own, and these strange things are happening. And then you almost have, there's like a half hour, 20 minutes to 30 minute period of the game where he's sort of questioning his own sanity.
He does say something like that,
really
doesn't he?
stuck with me this time round. And he's like, are you real? Because like, obviously you don't see any people throughout the game. It's just this disembodied voice. So you could imagine a scenario in which like he has gone mad and he's just hearing this voice. I mean, schizophrenics have it, don't they? Where they just hear voices coming out of things, and he's carrying this walkie-talkie around. There's no one actually speaking to him.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really, really great touch, that they never went at you with a hammer. They just sort of laid it on, talked about it for a bit, and then allowed the player to move on if they wanted. Like, maybe that's why it stuck with me. Maybe I made choices differently last time, but like when you're doing like your conversation trees, you can sort of start poking at that thing, saying, am I mad? Or you can sort of blow past that. Did you blow past it, or did you dig into that a little bit?
I think I tried to, because does he not seek out Delilah? Because Delilah is trying to tell him that he's, she's definitely real.
You're down by that old camp, I think, when after you've picked up the walkie-talkie, the clean walkie-talkie.
Yeah. Which, I can't remember too much about it, so I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I remember I spoke to you about a YouTube video I watched where this guy was basically claiming that Delilah is basically lying to you the entire time, and one of the key points he made was about the radio and how, there is no such thing as a clean radio. You just find the frequency if you have another radio, and you can hack into it either way.
Yeah.
So it doesn't change just because you've got a different radio or a different frequency.
That's it. I guess the other gameplay way to get around that is she has to get a message to him without saying it over the phone. How to change, like what frequency to change to, I guess.
Yeah. The other big point that this guy was making was that she takes that call, doesn't she, at some point, and says no, he doesn't know anything about it. Something like that. She's talking to somebody else. Yeah,
she does. She's like, oh, he's got no idea. No.
That's it. And they I've seen the developers apparently just put that in there to kind of mess with you.
Yeah,
there is no significance to it.
There's no significance to it because it either does come up or it came up, because I played this through with the commentary on. And it does come up again, or it is spoken about by the commentators. I think that's probably remember. And it's just one of these things that sort of feeds into the narrative, and it's one of those ones that it is as simple as Delilah says when she says, "Oh, I'm just taking another call." Yeah,
it's probably because I think another thing was that like all the phone lines are out, so who's she calling? Like that's the whole point of that particular part of the game is you're going to find where the communication lines are down.
With the other Firewatch people.
Yeah, it is. She's definitely
the supervisor.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a room in an RPG or whatever that's got nothing in it, or a horror game that's just an empty room. It's just a distraction to kind of throw you off, and I love that kind of stuff.
What did you think of at the start of the game when you have to? I knew how to poke at it this time, so it didn't really do anything for me this time. But the first couple of times I played it, when you go and meet those girls down by the lake, and you come up and you like, I remember listening to, it was an IGN podcast, I think, and maybe another one at the time when this game came out, and they were saying that like they were being the fire watchmen. You started coming across on all the beer cans, and they were collecting all the beer cans, tidying up after people, putting the fire out. The only thing I did is, like when you meet them and you start finding their clothes and stuff. And the only thing I did really is after they start giving you abuse, I just picked up their radio and launched it in the lake.
I found out too late in the game how you threw stuff like that. You have to hold it down, I think, don't you, to actually launch it? Yeah. I was picking up the cans even in the matey boys' hideout as well.
Oh, really?
I was fully involved in keeping that place clean.
Yeah, good taking your job seriously, Alex. That's all I
do. Yeah.
But yeah, before I go on, because I've got little bits and pieces that I discovered throughout the commentary, but I just want to basically, we've been jumping about, so like a quick nutshell rundown of the story. You're a guy ends up finding himself as a Firewatch guy for a summer, and it's set in 1989, which is about a year after real life fires. It's Shoshone fires in the forest. It's about a year after those massive. That's a real
fires.
Place. Yes.
Okay.
So you're watching this forest a year after like the biggest forest fire that is seen in living memory, basically.
Where's Shoshone supposed to be again?
Colorado.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, you're doing that, and basically you follow through this story as it's sort of there's like a two-prong to it. And the one prong is you're doing your job as a fire watchman, making sure people are behaving, making sure things are tidy, no fires are starting. If fires do start, you're reporting them, but at the same time you're sort of uncovering this mystery / revelation that the previous fire watchman in your hut had sort of against the rules, illegally perhaps is the right word, brought his son along for the summer, and his son had died, and rather than deal with the situation like an adult, this fire watchman ran off to live in the woods like some sort of hermit.
Yeah, there's always somebody worse than you, isn't there? There's one guy worse than Henry in this story.
I need to find this. So there was, let me open this. So as I was sort of Googling about for some information, turns out that the guy, maybe he hadn't lost a son and he hadn't been a fire watchman, but the guy in that runs off to live in the woods, that listens to your conversations and sort of creeps you out the whole time, is loosely based on this guy called Thomas Knight.
Okay.
Thomas Knight, let me have a quick... You might have to... I was trying to open it while we're chatting there. Let me copy that. So... Christopher Thomas Knight. Christopher Thomas Knight is also known as the North Pond Hermit, which is I'm now forgetting, but there was a name. The name of... No, I'm going to cut that out. So, Christopher Thomas Knight.
You're trying to say that it might be somewhere in the game?
The name of that little kids camp you go to.
And
I've forgotten what it was.
Whether we can hang our hat on it. Yeah.
No, we cannot. Is a former recluse and burglar who lived without human contact for 27 years between 1986 and 2013 in the North Pond area of Maine Belgrade Lakes. During his seclusion, Knight lived within a mile of summer cabins in a crude camp he built in a well-drained woodland obscured with a cluster of glacial erratic boulders. But basically, what he did is he lived for 27 years on his own. And he would just sort of live off the land and then periodically go into town and sort of raid through bins and burgle houses. And people, there was this sort of local myth that there was a man that lived in the woods, but no one ever believed it, and it was burgling houses and stuff like that. And everyone was like, "Oh, it's one of these." It's like when I was growing up in Stonehaven, Scotland. There was like a local rumour that there was a panther that people had loose, and there was like rumours that people had seen it stealing rabbits and stuff. Load of bollocks. But this is what this guy became. People thought that he was this fake like mythological dude that didn't actually exist, a bit like a Yeti. that just sort of lived in the woods. I'm trying to find some. Yeah, and basically people just thought he wasn't real, but he would randomly run into people and then he got caught. How did he get captured? He was captured by a game warden sergeant, Terry Hughes, in 2013.
Game warden?
Yeah.
So he's going around catching him with like a dog catching net.
Well, burgling Pine Tree Camp in Rome, Maine. He was sentenced to 7 months in jail, of which he had already served but a week while awaiting sentence. In addition to a jail sentence, Knight paid £2,000 in restitution to victims, completed a...
How?
I've no idea.
I'm sure he would have stolen that money that he gives back, but there we go.
Knight has described deep felt ethical misgivings about the burglaries committed, saying that stealing is wrong. Even the prosecutor said a longer sentence would have been cruel, and apparently he's still alive to this day. He's sort of reintegrated into society, which I thought was an interesting bit.
Imagine having a chat with that guy.
Yeah, it'd be super interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, maybe it wouldn't. You never know.
But
so, what did you do for all those years? Nothing. Oh yeah. You didn't. You watch any of the Super Bowls or anything? No, you didn't. Okay. No, don't worry about it.
But yeah, like you're saying, it turns out that the previous Firewatch warden guy his son had died by accident in a climbing accident, and you sort of discover that along the way. That's the sort of game in a nutshell, isn't it?
Do you remember precisely why the cave that he's in is locked? Why was that a thing? It wasn't her that did it, was it? You get into that cave later on, and then you discover the dead body of his kid. But why was it
I'm
locked?
Not sure, actually.
Did he lock it? Because if the park people locked it,
you find the key in his backpack when because you come across the guy's backpack and the key's in it. So yeah, I assume he sort of
that's right
locked himself away or locked it away so that people wouldn't find it.
Yeah, that's right. Because he locks you in there when you go in there the first time, don't you? So you basically can't ever come out and tell anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another interesting thing, like when you come across the guy's camp that he's made at the end of the game, where he's got all his stuff in it, and you can walk around and read his things and his notes and stuff like that. The design of that camp that he's got is actually based off a technique that Indians used to use in that neck of the woods to create their own camps. So I just thought it was an interesting little thing that they'd actually gone into the design of that guy's area. Was that a genuine, like, sort of living conditions that Indians would
like a proper lookout spot and all of that?
Yeah, actually, now you say that, I've got a couple other little bits of info for you on that. One is they were talking about when they were designing the first thing they designed in this game when they made it was the Firewatch towers. And they tried to design it as close to being a real Firewatch tower as they could, even to the point that you can see like a waste pipe and stuff coming down into like a waste collection area from the.
But this is definitely a real job.
Yeah,
people
yeah, absolutely. The only difference in terms of the actual cabin design that you live in as Henry and cabins in real life is that your staircase is on the outside, whereas if they were making it, the staircase is generally on the inside of the structure.
Oh, okay.
And that's really the only thing that's different.
For some reason, I had like I quite enjoyed the fact that he had to always push his hand over and like duck down under the thing as he walked down. I don't know why, but I always anticipated. I was like, oh, he's going to duck under that bit again.
Did you know this? I was saving this for the end, but actually, now that I've got it, did you engage with the photography section of the game in any way?
Only to get the achievement.
Only to get the achievement. Do you know
towards the end
the interesting wrinkle of that when the game came out of interest?
No, was there specific things you had to take photos of?
No, so if you played the game on PC, or actually you maybe didn't notice because you didn't engage with the mechanic, but at the end of the game, when the credits are rolling, it starts showing you all your pictures that you've taken. And if you had played the game on PC, you could then buy those pictures and they would print them out in photo paper and post them to you, so you had the actual photographs, which I thought was a nice little touch.
Yeah, that is a nice touch. And that kind of adds in, I was going to get to this at some point, but I might as well add that in there now. Of all the walking sims that I've played, this one definitely feels like the most open and allows you the most sort of
freedom.
Yeah.
You were a big fan of the map, right?
I loved it. I love the fact that there was never any markers. There was obviously the marker on the map, because I think without that you'd be just
stuffed.
staring at fucking trees all day. But I loved the fact that I had to keep whipping the map up and getting the compass out and making sure I was going in the right compass direction. That felt really like it just nailed the exact, not fun, but like, the satisfaction you'd get out of just being alone in this place.
Yeah, 100%.
Just wandering around, exploring it. Yeah, you could just kind of go. You could technically go you could go right from one end to the other if you wanted while everything's going on. Because I think at times I definitely was going the wrong way and was getting lost.
Yeah, I did it constantly. Yeah.
Wandered well out of where I was supposed to have been.
The interesting thing about that actually is that they created, so the map itself is a real life, not a real life place in the world, but it's a real designed map. So there's no jiggery pokery going on with the game. So like when you get to the guy's camp who lost his son, and you look out the window, you can see both your Firewatch tower and Delilah's Firewatch tower. That's actually the positioning. They've not faked that. That is actually where wicked. The Firewatch tower are. And so when you're actually walking to Delilah's Firewatch tower and you're walking to your own and you're actually moving around the map, and they're not doing any sort of jigger. Even there's one section in the cave, like there's a bit in the cave where you're climbing over walls to get to a different section. There's one bit in that, because they originally created the game where even the cave was like a real map, and where you came out was the real place that you went in and stuff, and they had real cave systems and stuff. But they found that when they were playtesting, a lot of players were spending a lot of time just walking in the caves and not actually seeing or doing anything. So there's a bit where you've got to climb over a rock to then jump down, and they do like a frame cut, and they basically just teleport the character to another part of the map where you would then come out at your other spot.
I see. Just to get you out of there.
Yeah, and on that as well, they actually, other than when you're in the cave again, the sun in the sky actually moves properly like it would in real life. To the point that when you're walking around and you're listening to developer commentary, you come across this thing that they call. Let me see.
So is there an actual cycle, or is it?
Yeah. There's a day-night cycle in the game.
Does it have a time frame, like a real time thing? It's obviously not 24 hours. Does it? How does that work in the game?
So the sun like will rise in the east, and then you can see it moving across the sky in certain time, and then it'll get dark.
Is that triggered by certain parts of you advancing the story?
So
or is it just going to do it anyway?
No. So
apologies if you don't actually know.
No, I think so. There's parts of the game where there's a bit in the game where you go into a cave and it's daylight, and you come out of the cave and it's night. They'll manipulate time, but what they do is because they've created a real map, and like the light that's coming from it, it's not like ray tracing, but it represents different times of day, and depending on where the sun is, will dictate on how the game
like shadows are formed and stuff.
Yeah. So I'm trying to find it in my notes now, but there's a section when you're playing through the developer commentary on, you come across this thing that they've called a light wheel, and they've basically got this wooden tower, which I actually didn't realize. I don't remember seeing this before, but you walk up on it and it's a wooden tower, sort of square wooden thing, and it's got a sort of clock face on it, and where you stand on the clock face, they show you how they've created the sun in the environment. So if I stand at like 3 o'clock, you'll see the sun above move to 3 o'clock, so you can see what it's like.
Oh, cool!
And then you can then run to like midnight, and then you can see the sun go whoosh back to midnight again, and it'll go dark. So you can see how they've actually, and you can see the shadows moving across the sky, so that yes, they're manipulating time, but where the sun is in the sky is actually representative to what time of day it is. So if you could tell the time by the sun, you could probably accurately tell the time of day in the game, which I thought was quite an interesting thing.
That is a very cool touch.
Yeah,
I did not realise that this sort of map was as fleshed out as this, whereas it's. Yeah, I knew it was kind of open and you could go anywhere, but the way that it's got all these extra mechanics to it, and the fact that it, as you say, always works as a one-to-one representation of where you are on the map, is what you're supposed to be seeing, is like a real world environment, is very cool.
So before I dive into my other tidbits, the other thing I wanted to touch on and get your opinion on is, what did you think of the section that you get to when you're sort of you start encountering this fence? What was your how did your feelings and reactions towards it change as the game progressed? When you were playing this game, and this is the thing that I guess I don't know, how much did you know going into this? So when
nothing.
So when you encountered this fence, you're like, oh, someone's fishy here.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the only thing I knew is that his wife had Alzheimer's or had something wrong with her. So nothing that happened was at all what I would have expected was going to happen, and I was fully buying into the conspiracy that they kind of what's the guy's name?
Henry.
No, the other guy.
Oh, I'm totally blanking on him.
Bill, not Bill.
Is it Bill? No. Firewatch characters. We need to have his name because I've been talking around it the whole bleeding time. Ned Goodwin.
Yeah. The conspiracy that Ned obviously wants you to believe is happening when really he's just bored and you're his television show. But I did not predict anything that was going on like that. I obviously thought that something weird was. I knew Henry was safe.
Yeah,
but I still definitely felt the tension of. Well, it was just so well acted and so well written out, where Henry's constantly kind of getting more and more paranoid, and the two of them really don't know how to deal with this, and they're both getting really panicked. I was totally bought into all of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did kind of think he could climb over the fence.
yeah.
Don't know why you just cut it open, mate. But whatever.
The only thing that never really got resolved, and if it did get resolved, I never clicked or saw it or took it in, was when you're in that station that's sort of the university area where they actually are doing tests on the soil and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
when you go into that tent, you can see notes about yourself. Why are those there?
He planted them there.
Right, okay. So
to make you think that
because he was listening on the walkie-talkie. He knew you were trying to get in.
Yeah, because he hadn't swapped the walkie-talkie over at that point. Right, yeah,
got you.
But yeah, so that was actually, like you say, legitimate equipment for monitoring, nothing to do with you, and he's just dropped all that stuff in there to kind of make it look like that's what was going on. Then he burnt it down for some reason.
Yeah, that's it.
I guess to blame you for it, I suppose.
Yeah. What did you?
Is that what happens? He's trying to get you blamed for the fire.
He knows that he's getting in your head, and I think he's maybe trying to blame you for the fire, and then also trying to.
I can't remember what his end game was for doing that.
I think he just wanted you to go away, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Because he knew that you knew something was up. So he was just.
Well, he was a bit sloppy, wasn't he? He's leaving all of his stuff around.
Yeah, and then those two girls go missing, and I got Delilah to lie about that.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, just don't mention it. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly the same as me. I wonder how that plays out. If you must have done it a different way, or if you've done it the same way every time.
Yeah, they get found the same way. They get found. No, the other you can.
In any of your playthroughs, did you ever tell her to actually tell the police?
Oh no. That's not how I roll.
Yeah.
Don't
I just wonder how that whole section would.
So there is an intricate,
because they would feel differently about it, wouldn't they? They'd be like, well, we've already told the police, so you can't threaten us with that or whatever. But in this case, obviously, you and I were both totally caught up by the fact that, oh shit, we have actually been quite negligent there.
My assumption here is that there is a dialogue choice that will happen, because apparently the original concept of this game was built on Twine. Have you heard of Twine?
No.
It's basically this sort of Twine is this really easy to use sort of Mario Maker version of walking sims / like choose your own adventure stories.
Okay.
So it's this way that it's this free to use software that allows you to create this. You can write a story and then just create dialogue trees to allow people in.
Okay.
It was a big. I think there's quite a lot of things on like the Nintendo DS that are made on Twine. It was a fairly popular thing around that era. But that's where Would it?
So they kind of like did the proof of concept on that twine thing, and then made the game after that.
Yeah,
to get the.
Apparently, originally the game is actually very different. How it ended up to what they wanted it to be, and initially they wanted it to be a sort of breadcrumb trail murder mystery in which they basically plonked you in the map, and then you would have to go off and find these little breadcrumbs and like find and discover the story of Brian Goodwin, because apparently it was possible that you could find Brian Goodwin right at the start of the game, and then
alive.
No, dead,
sorry, no,
right,
like
dead right at the beginning of the game, or you could find him in the middle of the game or at the end of the game, and it was up to you. Sort of, like almost like a Her Story type of game where you'd go off and here's what happened, and you've got to try and piece it all together. But they said they were, because of the conversation, like in the dialogue choices and stuff like that, and actually trying to create a game that was fun to engage in. It just became so convoluted and too difficult to do that they just scrapped the whole thing and just made it a straightforward game, because there's
kind of a more linear narrative to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And Her Story is complicated, so I can see why they were put off by it. I did not finish that game the right way.
You didn't finish it the right way?
No, not Her Story, no.
In what way?
Oh, I think I just got the crap ending where I just didn't really understand what was going on. I probably had to look it up because I just got my notes in my notebook weren't making any sense anymore, and I just kind of had to. So
did you ask her to stay? Because I knew she was going to leave whatever. So like this is one thing that I did both. In that when I first played the game, I was emotionally invested in Delilah. I was wait for me.
Sorry, you're not talking about Her Story, the game anymore. You're talking about Delilah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I got confused there. I've never played Her Story. Oh
God, it is hard. It is a hard game. But yes, Delilah. I think I did ask her to stay. Yeah, I think I did. At that point, I probably took myself slightly out of everything and just thought this is probably what Henry actually does want at this stage.
Yeah, I guess that's another.
You wouldn't have got invested this far if you didn't want her to stay.
Were you playing the game as Henry, or were you playing the game as Alex?
Maybe. I think I probably always do this where, when it comes to a tough decision, I don't feel mentally prepared to do it based off my own, opinion. So I just pretend that I'm now the character and this is what they would do, because I don't want to have to make that decision for myself. It's why you and I have often talked about we don't finish Fallout games when we have to make a decision between loads of factions. Or was that me and Chris talking about that?
That's maybe you and Chris. Yeah,
it was me. Neither of us finished New Vegas because we don't want to make the choice of who to go for.
It's the end of Fallout 3 drives me mad, because you've got to either allow the place to get wrecked, or you have to go and sacrifice yourself by going into this radiation chamber.
Yeah.
And I just got angry because my companion was a super mutant, and I was like, he can handle the radiation. Just send him in.
It was Forbes or
something like that. Yeah.
So
that wound me up, and I think they retrospectively changed the end of Fallout 3, but I can't remember what they changed it to.
Right. Yeah, I definitely didn't go in there. I let him stay in there.
So another example about how this story changed over the course, and I don't know, I'm interested to hear your views on if you think this is better or worse. So they had written one version of this game where Delilah didn't even know who Brian was.
Okay.
So they were writing the game. It was basically that as you discovered that this guy Ned had taken his son with him on his Firewatch job over the summer, Delilah was also finding out, but they thought it had a bit more emotional impact if she knew who he was, because then when you found a body, there was someone connected to the body rather than just this, here's a dead body.
I'd say that has to be the way that they do it. And I think, not that the conspiracy theorists or whatever around this are necessarily right, but I think it absolutely opens up more debate around how much Delilah really knows, if she technically already knows about him.
I think that makes
the fact that he could have been there still, because if she didn't know anything was going on, then you'd have no reason to ever distrust her.
Yeah.
Whereas because she already knows about Brian and Ned, you kind of can question how much she should know about this, and if she actually knew he was listening all along, or whatever or whether she was speaking to him
Yeah.
when she said, "I've got to take another call."
To me, that's what makes a story like this interesting, though, that there are other threads that you can pull at and other ways you can look at the game, and how, like, is Delilah being honest? Is she a liar?
Yeah.
Like, how much of this is true? How much of it isn't? Because it's the same with the Final Station, which we also did a podcast on. Go and have a listen to if you haven't. And like, it turns out that the leader of the free world is a sci-fi writer, and you're like, is what is happening here real, or is he making this up to try and get to his own ends? It's like, I just think that I just find these multiple angles really, really interesting. It's probably why one of the reasons I really like this game.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily have to choose from these multiple angles. They're just at play.
They're just there,
and they can twist how you sort of feel and react about the game, which is the best way to do it. There's sometimes too much player agency involved with this kind of thing, but whereas this is just, as you say, multiple threads that you just have to kind of piece together in your head. You can't affect anything. You just have to try and figure out what's going on based off of them. I prefer it that way.
So this is one thing I didn't get, apparently, and I know that this is a thing, but I don't know what thing this is. There's a thing that apparently, you know, like how you can encounter items throughout the game. There's an item that you can pick up before you see Brian's body, that when you get to Brian's body, Henry will then place it next to his dead body. Do you know what that is? Because I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
No, this is one thing, because they were talking about it, and they were like, in the developer commentary, they're like, oh yeah, there's a certain item, and I think we all know what it is, that if you get to Brian's body, he'll place it next to him. And I'm like, oh, I've got absolutely no idea what this item is. I should have Googled.
Got loads of books, you can have that.
I think it's probably like a toy dinosaur or something like that. There are. I was thinking at the time, and I was like, oh, maybe it's that. And then,
what's the stuff that gets? You're probably not going to remember this either. But there's loads of weird stuff left in those things, isn't there? The little chests that you can get the supplies out of. There's always
every time you go in, there's like little bits and pieces, and that's just like the Firewatch.
It's like an antler or something, isn't there?
There's antlers. You find old books. You find toilet roll. You find stuff
those books
like that.
Are real books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought they might be
real books.
Threw all of them in the lake. Every time I picked a book up, just fucking lob it. Fucking books, get out of here.
They're real books unless there was like copyright attached to them. Still like live copyright, in which case they've done like an allusion to a book. So like if you're going through the books and the games in Henry's cabin, they're either all real books or they're based on things that are real.
Yeah.
But
1894 by Orge Jorwell.
Exactly like that. Yeah. Which I think is a nice. They even go around.
Because I think I may have recognised the title of one, which is when I start to think like, are these actual real books?
Yeah, it's really well done, because they even like try and like the book selections are even poignant to what the story is and what they're trying to do, and if you know the stories and the books that you're picking up, you can have an idea of where the story's going in the game, which I thought was
cool.
Really, really cool.
How many times did you make sure that you put the picture of you and your wife back up properly on the table? I think every time I was in that room, I was always like, put it back. Come on, have some respect.
The only thing
she's ill, mate. She's not feeling very well. Come on.
I actually.
It was quite hard because sometimes, like one time, I accidentally dropped it in the drawer, and there was something else in the drawer, and I couldn't get the picture back out because he kept automatically selecting the other thing that was in the drawer, and I was like, no, I want the picture of me and the wife to put back on the fucking table. I was devastated.
I don't know what it says about me actually, because I when it comes to an RPG, I'll always play it probably as me, but when it comes to a game like this, I always try and play it as a character. I took the picture and I took the picture, I put it in a drawer, and I took my wedding ring off and put it in the drawer and shut it, and then just never looked at it again. I went and got it. I went and got the ring before I left and went to Delilah's cabin. But other than that, I was like, not engaging with this.
It's an unmarried man's way of dealing with things, folks.
Yeah.
So I kept that ring on.
The little gameplay things that they did in the game, did you enjoy that? When you go and visit the abandoned camp and you find an axe, you have to chop down trees and stuff to get back across. Any thoughts on those? I guess it's pretty standard, just block you off because it's a key part of the environment that they want to get you to at a certain time.
Yeah, and it was just pressing a button, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to touch
I wouldn't
on
want there to be like QTEs or whatever, like a get your Wii remote out and start soaring down a tree.
The other thing that I actually wanted to touch on before, there's a couple of times in the game where when you're playing through developer commentary, like in that camp is one example, is you come up on the game and it shows you what your character looks like as you're walking around the world, and it's just this headless figure.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and they let you like go and mess about with it, and they let you like because basically what you do is there's like an old like 80s TV in front of you, and on the TV is it, and like on behind the TV they've got a camera, and on the front of the TV is basically you without a head, and you're just sort of moving about, and you can run around and just show how like, and it, like, you know how you can like make yourself do different things. So like obviously like it's a first person game, so when they just want the map to come up in front of the player's face, but actually when they look at it, his arm becomes all weirdly deformed and this map just comes up and he's like doing all this weird stuff. And there's another bit as well when they show you at the end of the game where you sit when you're in Delilah's cabin and you sit down at her chair, and they've also got the camera set up because the body just sort of sits down, and then this disembodied head just moves forward, so it's just nothing like what you're seeing, which
that's wicked.
It was a really cool thing that they let you mess about with. But yeah, the only other thing I think I've got to talk about in this game is, did you know at the end, when you get picked up by the helicopter at the end of the game,
you can refuse, can you?
Yeah, if you don't go to the helicopter, it flies off and leaves you in the woods, so you can become the next Ned.
If you don't burn to death.
If you don't burn to death. But
no, wait, where is Ned at this point? He's still there.
He just leaves. He's like, well, it's on fire. You found out where I live. You found out about me. I'm not going back. See you later. And then he just goes. So you find a thing at the end of towards the end of the game where you find his bag and you take his bag off a tree and an alarm goes off.
Yeah.
That was his bug out bag. So basically, if things got too hot where he was, he could run away, grab the bag, and run into the forest and never be seen again.
Off to Mexico with him.
Yeah, you nicked his bug out bag by accident and found a load of stuff in it, which then led you to, I guess that led you to the area, the one thing that we haven't covered in this game, which is sort of Brian's little toy den, which I thought was quite... It's one thing that the game did very well, I thought, in humanizing Brian. And obviously, like, there's the only character in the game is you and the man that puts his hand out in the helicopter at the end of the game. They created a whole personality about this boy without you ever seeing him, really.
Yeah, just based off of, like a recollection from a...
He's writing letters to an old man saying, sorry, I can't cut your grass. And then he's like, oh, if you found this, you've obviously found the hiking gear that I've hidden because I don't want to go climbing anymore. Can you send it back?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely spot on. That they fleshed out a character that you never meet purely through recollections from Delilah or just sort of odds and sods around a hole in a cave.
Did you find that you...
Poor little bastard.
Did you find that you liked any of the characters in the game? I liked Brian.
I
didn't dislike Henry. No,
I don't think I did either. I wasn't... I was questioning Delilah's motives.
Yeah.
I understand she was important for Henry to converse with. He needed something like that to keep him going. And if you trust her, then I guess she was largely a sympathetic character.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't dislike Henry.
No, I don't think I found that I didn't dislike anyone.
Fucking girls.
Yeah.
There's loud, yobbish, trampy girls
that got lost in the woods. I thought they had got... When I first played that game and you saw their tent got wrecked, I was like, bear. Definite bear.
Well, they talk about a bear, don't they? And I'm like, I hope I don't fucking see this bear anytime I'm running around here and it just game overs me because I didn't get out of his way. That would have sucked if it's here's an insta-death stealth section where you got to hide from the bear.
I think overall I'm glad you liked this game because it was a game that really spoke to me when it came out 6 years ago, and I played it again, and it's hard for me to tell because obviously this is my third time through the game.
Yeah.
But it just didn't feel as impactful. But it does sound like you were invested in the story, which I think is a nice thing to hear.
Yeah,
Because
good storytelling is ageless, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
because this is just one of the
certain
games.
aspects of this game don't hold up, but there's nothing about the story that doesn't.
Like,
I was hooked, but I was hooked in. I was suckered in by it.
it's one of these ones that I find myself, and I don't want to gush on it. I don't want to overplay this. Like, it was a good game. The
ending was slightly disappointing.
In what way? Let's get into that.
Well, it did kind of. It's not a cop out, but it certainly didn't feel as if it was satisfactory that this guy was just like bored and hiding because he was guilty and was just kind of listening in. I don't really know what I wanted though, because obviously you don't want it to be that he is actually being listened to by whoever it was, like this commission or these like government people, and he is actually going to end up. I didn't want for him to be like he's going to go to jail for setting this fire and murdering these girls and all that kind of stuff. I guess being baited and switched is what pisses a lot of people off about the ending, and maybe the fact that Delilah's not there. I don't think I was that bothered by that.
I don't think the games would have been better for Delilah being there. I think
it's better for her not being there.
I think it's better because you'll never know what she looks like, and I think that's part of the allure to her. It's not that. I mean, it's partly because Henry's lonely and he's looking for a release and he's looking for something that is not his sick wife.
Mm-hmm.
I think do you
think that's supposed to be put in there to kind of bring you back round again what should be important to Henry is this woman shouldn't be important to you. You've got this. You've had this sort of escape for a little bit.
It's time,
but she's not real.
No, exactly. And if you had met her, she is real. Whereas, I know she's literally a real person, but metaphorically speaking, she's sort of she's just this thing that was there to help you. Because my read on it, and this might not be an accurate read on it, but my read on it was when he comes back from living in the woods, he's ready to try and sort of face life. And Delilah was there to help him. Yeah. Delilah was there to help him sort of learn or just come to terms with it, go through his grief with him, just be a companion. And she'll always be this enigmatic person. Like she'll always be his imagination. She'll never be a real person because real people are fallible, as this game likes to tell us. Mm-hmm. Whereas like she was a very fallible person. But
he was
the Delilah that he experienced that summer can always just be that, and that's, to me, that's enough. And the game's better for it. I think it would have been worse.
Yeah, it's almost sort of forcefully redeems Henry, doesn't it?
The whole exactly, and the whole
you've got no choice now. You have to be kind of faithful and go back to your wife because Delilah's gone. And so any chance you had to do something wrong here has been taken out of your hands.
And the whole personality they're creating around Delilah is that she does not stick around. She will go at the first sign of trouble. And if she had stuck around, that would be the sort of not her character. It would have been out of character.
Yeah. What do you want at the end of that? If she is there, what as a player would you even want if that's what you actually want to happen? What Henry and her just do the horizontal monster mash and watch the fire together.
Endings don't always have to be neat, and sometimes the best endings aren't neat, in my opinion, because if you're trying to create a story that is sort of talking about real life often isn't got neat tied bows on the end of it. Like things come and go, things drift apart, things get frayed, things don't happen. Some like. You know fine well if you're watching a movie and you see like the Chekhov's gun in the movie, you're like, well, that's going to be resolved at some point. Sometimes in life, Chekhov's gun does not get resolved, and it is just a gun in a drawer. I just like the people that sort of poke at that, and I think that's an interesting thing, that not everything has to be tied up in a nice bow. And to me, that's what I would say. People that are angry about it just want everything tied up nicely.
Yeah, exactly. Having sort of talked it out, maybe even the disappointment that it was just a bloke kind of watching you who accidentally killed his kid rather than a grand conspiracy is probably better, because what would I really wanted out of that potential other ending, I guess I suppose every time anything like that is over, there's always going to be some slight disappointment where you just sort of think, "Oh right, okay,
Do you think
it's finished, isn't it? That's it. It's done.
am
The
I
conflict is over." So
am I overthinking this and maybe getting too wrapped up in it? In a way, is that maybe deliberate? Like
it definitely
the whole
from
thing
them,
is
I
an
would have
anti-climax. Be like, oh, it's just that, and that's to me that's what it's getting at.
Yeah, I
Like
think so.
there was no grand conspiracy. You were on your own. You were wrapped up in your own head. You were already emotionally on the edge, and you were just ready. You were ready to go over the edge, I guess.
Yeah, that certainly has been, a recurring theme in my life where I, overly worry or obsess about things, and then at the end of it, it's just like, oh, that was just kind of nothing, actually, wasn't it? And it's done.
Yeah.
Really wasn't as bad as I thought, or whatever. So yeah, I guess there is that part of it because, as you say, you get wrapped up in your own head, and you can't actually logically see these things happening.
I'm glad.
So yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind the bait and switch, even if it is a bit of a just kind of like it was nothing really. Look, it's just a mental bloke.
Yeah. That's that. Yeah.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to know again how you would react to accidentally killing your son.
That's the one. Is that's the sort of I can't imagine someone doing that thing. But
Yeah, I don't think that would. Because I mean, I guess a life in jail is what awaits him, or as a fugitive or something.
Yeah, I mean,
to never have it discovered.
It just seemed like an overreaction though, because it was an accident. You would hope the justice system would think there's no proof here that it was anything other than an accident. So,
I mean, I don't know what.
Uncomfortable for a bit.
I can't see how it's any more comfortable if you're just hiding out in the woods.
He's not had a better life over the last year.
Yeah. What closure do you get from that? I mean,
he's not even buried his son.
There will never be an acceptable closure to your child dying, even if the closure is the law says it's not your fault and off you go, and you get some grief counselling or whatever. But I wouldn't have thought living in a cave and listening to Delilah talk to a bunch of random blokes was the best way to deal with it. That's not really going to get you where you want to get out of it.
No, I don't think so.
It's not going to heal you.
If you were going to rate this on the Winergy scale, what would you give this game?
I mean, if I'm taking the technical performance of it, then it's somewhere around the fives. But
unfortunately,
I'd probably say 7.5, maybe. I feel like we go 7.5 a lot, but
well, if 7 is good, I think it's good. I mean, I think I would say it's like a great story, but it's a great. I love the design. I love how the game looks. But you're right. It's a video game. It doesn't run well. But
it does on PC.
The version we played didn't run well, I guess.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd give it an 8 or an 8.5 for the story and how it made me feel and how it made me think. But you're right. It's also like graphically it's aged poorly. I even think I don't.
Like I said, the color palette's nice, but it's not striking in the way that certain games are.
It probably was striking then. It's just not. It's just not now. No.
But sometimes it felt a bit basic.
But yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed how it made me feel. I enjoy how it made me think.
I mean, I completely agree with you that it's the best walking sim I've played.
Yeah, that's where I was going actually. Is like, I feel like it's slightly moved on a bit. Like walking sims now that are coming out are probably like Man and Medan, which are more similar to
like an interactive
Walking Dead sort of thing. Like
David Cage's stuff.
Yeah, just with a good story. Sorry, David Cage, you can't write a good story.
No, you can't.
Yeah, I think those games they probably don't exist now, because especially now that Valve,
I can't think of too many recent ones.
No, especially now that Valve own Campo Santo, I don't think it'll ever come out. So
that one's done.
Their new game will never come out. Sorry.
I
think that's it for it. Do we usually?
They were so big at a certain time, though, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that brings. I don't have anything else. Is there anything else you think we've missed that we want to discuss, Alex?
I mean, it's not a very long game, so I think we've probably covered all we can.
Yeah, I guess to do a bit of housekeeping, if you want to send us an email to ask us a question or give us some chat, you can send us an email to awinnersupod@gmail.com. If you've listened to this podcast, you can also look at our lovely faces by heading over to YouTube and looking for a Winners U podcast. If you've watched our lovely faces, you're like, I can't take any more of this, but I've enjoyed the conversation, you can then head over to your podcast feed of choice and search a Winners U podcast, and you will find us. You can follow me on Twitter at DavidSmiley1. You can follow Alex on Twitter at SuperThrillix. And you can follow us on Twitter at a Winners U pod. And you can also follow our Instagram page, which is at Winners U pod as well. Alex, do you have any updates? I have been doing nothing with my life apart from work. Do you have any ongoing magazine updates, or is it all on the DL? Oh, there he is. Episode 4. Issue 4.
There's issue 4 in the flesh.
And just to think, not a matter of months ago, we were standing in a nerd shop admiring those covers by that man.
As me is Patrick Moore.
Patrick Moore / Alex Aldridge, yeah.
Yeah, so fucking cracking. That's a cracking issue, that is. I think my writing has been soundly smashed by a guy called Steve who wrote the Mortal Kombat review, which is, I actually laughed out loud multiple times. The guy he's got a screw loose, but I enjoy him. He's very weird.
Good.
He's an actor, so figure that out.
Is he? Okay.
So have you got one of these coming your way? Did you order one of these? Have you
mate,
subscribed?
as long as you're writing for this magazine, I'm going to be a sub. So yeah.
So I believe it is. It was posted either yesterday or today. So in a couple of days, it should be yours. Yes. Oh well, some poor disgruntled postman who is definitely never going to be me is going to have to lug it all the way up to you there. But
it's just going to be one sorry man, because apparently, like, still in 2022.
It'll be in shorts, though.
Yeah, it'll be in shorts. Still in 2022, I encountered the thing where you order something like, oh, we don't deliver to the Highlands. That's an interesting bit of knowledge from you, but I don't live in the Highlands, so
I was about to say what.
Fucked. But yeah, I always have them to refuse to deliver. But so basically, there's going to be one postman walking from Glasgow to my house in Aberdeen
to the Highlands of Aberdeen.
To the Highlands of Aberdeen to deliver my issue. But yeah, I'll look forward to that and getting into it.
Yeah, and I guess he's the editor. Tim should be joining us for a podcast somewhere down the line, maybe next month, I believe. A bit of cross promotion going on.
Yeah, we're going to be playing. Well, it's not the next game, but at some point we're going to be playing Symphony of the Night this year, which I am interested to do because I've never played it. Never played it. The only sort of castle.
Yeah, you've just watched speedruns, haven't you? So you only ever seen this game played backwards
with the character flying backwards. Yeah. I have the only Metroidvania game I think I've even ever played is maybe Ori and the Blind Forest, and that's it.
You didn't play Bloodstained, did you?
Maybe for about 3 minutes.
I loved that game. So good.
So yeah,
Ori's a Metroidvania. You never played any Metroid games either. I guess you've not.
Nope.
Fucking hell.
Nope. I missed the Nintendo fandom when I was a kid, and then I got older, and then started finding it a real struggle to spend the Nintendo tax on Nintendo games. So my Switch is basically, it gathers dust, or I will play that card game that we got into.
Play the Spire.
Yeah, every so often. But annoyingly, it runs way slower than it does on Xbox, so I feel like I should just go
does
back
it?
to Xbox, yeah.
Okay.
Trigger. But it's the perfect format and the perfect form factor for that game, so I've kind of stuck with it. It's not so bad, it's unplayable. But I suppose, well, actually it doesn't, because next up we have got Inscription coming up.
Oh,
which I can't wait. I can't wait.
I was going to say, I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, but we both very much enjoyed that game. It's quite unlike anything I've ever played.
Yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
I think I said this to you before, but I did a full Life is Strange on it. Started started off like blazing a trail, not caring at all, and then at some point in the game just like grabbed me by the nostrils and just forced me to fall in love with it.
Yep. I don't know if we ever did it back in the day. We did an old pod about Life is Strange, did we?
I don't think
we must have done, because we obviously, you made me play it, and then we must have had a discussion about how it totally hooked us in.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I've never played any more of those ever since then.
No, but
I feel like the magic wouldn't be there anymore.
It sounds like we've done the right thing. It doesn't sound like, and I think we're safe to stay away.
You can't retread lightning in a bottle.
No, exactly. And talking of,
but look forward to Inscription, because we've got so much to delve into there. I really need to sort my notes out. They are lengthy and messy, because that game is quite the thing to unpack.
I do not envy you having to lead the next podcast, because it is a beautiful mess.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And talking beautiful messes, I suppose that brings us to the end of episode 33 of the Resurrected A Winner's You podcast. And with that, I've been David, he has been Alex, we have been A Winner's You, and I'm out.
Keep gaming.